Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome back to Anime King. And I'm back with part 3 of What If Naruto was resurrected by his followers. Remember to get this one too. 100 like as usual. Share this to all of your friends on your social media platform. And also, guys, don't forget to go ahead and check out the brand new series over on Anime Symbol of What If Naruto was the Monarch of Destruction from Solo Leveling, guys. So go ahead, check out that, and yeah, enjoy. And if you're new, yes, I did have 3 more channels, which I post What If on every single day for you guys to enjoy. So go ahead and obliterate that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and your support. So without further ado or wasting any more time, let's begin this now, guys. So, to do a bit of a recap for the last part that we left off, Naruto had slapped Sakura across the face for her touching him, as that caught everyone off guard. When Kakashi arrived, unaware of what was going on but sensing the tension, as the other two were able to confirm everything that took place before he had arrived, he went to speak with Naruto afterwards, trying to gauge what was going on with him, as he believed that the Land of Wave mission affected Naruto much more greatly than they originally believed. However, Naruto then proceeded to reveal information that Kakashi wasn't even sure that he knew about. It was about his parents that caught him off guard as he teleported Naruto away using a Shanshin. He took Naruto to the office so that the Hokage could speak to him about the matter, trying to understand just what exactly was going on, as they proceeded to have a conversation. Hiruzen told Naruto that he could not tell him because he feared what would happen. However, all of this was simply Naruto's game. He even used his own chakra to make Hiruzen more susceptible, a form of genjutsu, as the man was talking about things that he would normally not talk about. He dived within the clan as Naruto asked him about his mother's side, the Uzumakis. They were a very violent clan. However, one more than most stood out as the most violent. His name was Satoru. Unfortunately though, Hiruzen had no idea just where Naruto's power was, as he had no idea where the Uzumakis had split his power and sent it off to. He knew that they could not send his power beyond this dimension, otherwise, it would be at a bigger risk of it coming back together to, well, bringing him back to reality, so they wouldn't do something like that. Therefore, it was still here. Not to mention he could feel it, but he just could not exactly tell where it was. It was because of this weak, idiotic form. Naruto proceeded to apologize for his wrongdoings, once again a part of his whole game, manipulating people around him, as he told Sakura that he was having a hard time, so he lashed out, which made the girl see him in a new light, becoming more respectable and becoming his so-called friend. However, in actuality, Naruto was simply playing them all, being the mastermind of the game that he was creating, the game that he was crafting, and no one had absolutely any idea just what exactly was going on. We then had a deep dive within the mindscape, as Naruto had the fox completely under his control. This was at the Land of Waterfall, where a man known as Suyin tried to take over the country. As Naruto watched Sasuke and the others fell unconscious, With them out of the mix, Naruto took Suyin on. As Suyin realized that he was dealing with a whole different type of monster, it caught him off guard as Naruto brutalized the man. However, it wasn't over just yet, as Naruto was using the density of the power of the 90 of Fox. We dive into a flashback to see Minato and Kushina tried to subdue Naruto. They tried to stop him, but Naruto summoned chains that were able to grip chakra itself, as the both of them were able to see just what was going on and know that this was not their son. Despite him being Naruto, yes, but he was a fragment of that man that almost destroyed the entire elemental nation. However, Naruto subdued them and proceeded to absorb and consume their essence. With that said and done, he proceeded to turn his wrath upon none other than Suyin. As he demolished the man, he did not stand a chance in hell. He faked ignorance, telling Kakashi that he was overrun by the Nine Tails once again, but that was simply not truthful. With that, the days passed, as the big day finally came for the upcoming Chunin exams. Naruto was still playing his part, everyone believing that he was just Naruto, but, well, they wouldn't know the difference. As they took part in the exams, when the second phase finally arrived, Naruto was swallowed by a snake, courtesy of Orochimaru. However, he could sense the Sannin descending upon his team. Given the information that he now knew, Naruto believed that Orochimaru would be more viable to give him information than most people. So with that, he waited until Orochimaru sank his fangs in Sasuke's neck, branding him with the curse mark. As Kyoka arrived right on time, having gathered what Naruto had sent her to retrieve, he took a single blade from the items, a very special, powerful blade. The symbols on it started to light up as Naruto proceeded to absorb the power that he had stored in said blade, as he could feel it coursing through him. Just a mere fraction of his true power. The blade upon itself was incredibly special. He created it at his peak of his power after all. Therefore, it was one of the most powerful weapons in the entire elemental nation, bypassing those weapons that were even created by the Sage of Six Paths because of what it could do. Its name was Kurasuke. As Naruto told Kyoka to knock Sakura out, which he did, Sasuke got bite. As he told Kyoka to get him out of here, Orochimaru was caught off guard a bit, not understanding what was going on. As they simply appeared, he was confused by this little team up. However, Naruto told him that he was not going to leave here because he desired information from him. Orochimaru found it rather amusing, a child threatening him. However, the both of them engaged him at once, and the Sannin saw something flying through the sky. Confusion marred his face as he realized it was his arm. So yeah guys, basically let's split off. You guys can switch across the playstation of yourselves to begin this new episode. Orochimaru was confused. That was the only word that he could use at the moment. He had no idea what hit him. One moment they both were coming at him from left to right. The next, his right arm was in mid-air. And then he was kicked, due in his confusion, through one of the forest trees. And these were no normal trees. They were gigantic. Landed on said broken tree was Naruto, looking down at the Sannin, who was simply stumped on trying to understand what was going on. Orochimaru looked down towards his hand, and confusion even more racked him. His arm was not regenerating. In fact, it wasn't even healing. It was still bleeding. Getting up to his feet rather quickly. "What have you done?" he said. "I told you," said Naruto. "This blade is special. More special than anything you've ever come across before." The Sannin narrowed his gaze. The blade was able to negate his healing ability. However, to what extent, he wondered to himself. Gazing up towards a woman, she possessed a monstrous amount of strength. He was sure that a few of his ribs were broken. Given the dexterity of his body, a feat like that should be extremely difficult. However, she did it. It seems like this boy was no normal boy. And whoever that woman was, there was something much more grand at play here. Something much more. But he wasn't quite sure what exactly it was, or what exactly was going on. However, he knew one thing for certain though. If he held back too much, he would die. The Sannin moved off with an incredible amount of speed, showing that he was deserving of his title. He blitzed behind Naruto, his blade already in his hand as he swung, aiming to decapitate Naruto where he stood. However, his blade met friction as it clashed with another. Kyoka now standing between them, her strange curved blades protecting Naruto. She had two blades in her hand. They were unusually curved, like a scythe, almost twisting around. But she handled them like a pro though. Orochimaru was truly shocked by her speed, the fact that she was able to clear that distance so quickly. Orochimaru struggled to bypass her strength but found it not so easy. The Sannin jumped away as he landed only to almost fall down to the ground. Looking down, his left leg below the knee was no longer there. Another confusing dilemma that he could not exactly wrap his head around. He could feel the pain now, after it happened a few seconds. This wasn't an illusion, this wasn't a genjutsu. Looking down towards the boy. "You are right about one thing," Naruto said, resting said blade on his shoulder. "You are more powerful than me right now, I'll give you that." However, he flipped the blade in his hand as he caught the handle once again. Orochimaru jumped out of the way, now realizing what exactly was going on. Remember Naruto's words very carefully about his blade being special and one of the greatest in the world. "You catch on quick," said Naruto. "That's good. I hate this to be too much of a disappointment. You are a Sannin after all." Orochimaru's mouth started to open before a hand pushed through it, followed by another before another fresh Orochimaru escaped as he now stood on both feet. "Impressive," said Naruto. "The Kamiyarisuri technique. It fits with your fighting style and your whole demeanor." The Sannin froze when he heard that. How do you know that name?" he said. The technique that Orochimaru was using was an extremely rare technique, as there was no other in the world that knew about it. There was no other that tried to attempt it, while he wasn't the one that exactly created it. Still, how in the world does this simple boy know about that? Let me guess. You came across it during your travels, said Naruto. You've been missing from the village for some time now, so I suppose it's not a long shot. Then again, given the kind of man that you are, which makes you perfect for gathering intel from. Tell you what, I'll tell you what exactly I know. Given that you're not going to tell anyone. The Sannin did not say anything, but his eyes were on the both of them. I was the one that created that technique. Orochimaru looked at Naruto like he was crazy, before he started to chuckle, finding what the child said amusing. It seems you've lost a couple marbles up there, and I've had enough wasting my time with you. I suppose you're right, said Naruto. He lifted the blade upwards. The next moment, as Orochimaru jumped away, the Sannin was split in two pieces from the waist. Orochimaru was shocked as snakes emerged and pulled his body back together. The next moment he was split from the right shoulder going down. However, this time, Naruto bested his recovery time and leap. He was grabbed by Kyoka, who threw him. Naruto's feet slammed into Orochimaru's head, taking away its upper half from his lower half. Kyoka, on the other hand, buried a special blade within Orochimaru's lower half, causing the man to collapse down to the ground. The top half opened its mouth, but Naruto placed 2 fingertips on the forehead, already finishing his hand signs. Orochimaru was stuck, unable to leave his body. He tried to move his arms, but he was unable to do anything, as Naruto chuckled slightly. He held the blade out, allowing Orochimaru to see said blade. So far, since the battle began, I have not used this weapon. The Sannin eyes went wide, despite unable to speak. I haven't even performed any special techniques or anything. To be quite frank with you, I'm not capable of using it right now. I'm too weak. It requires a lot more power to even consider using it, because its ability is vastly too powerful. However, I made you think that was the case. But all along, I was never doing a single thing. Why don't you take a better look? Orochimaru narrowed his gaze, his eyes being the only thing that he could move. You see those? As Kyoka was holding the curved blades in her hand. Don't worry, I'll tell you what happened. Each time she swung her blades, it released a collapsing form of wind energy that is almost invisible. Almost. The only way to truly focus on what and understand what she's doing is to rely on not your eyes but your senses. I'm sure if you had focus and relinquished your chakra, you would have noticed, but your eyes were on me. Kyoka already performed the swing 3 times, and each time she does, a blade sight whipped through the air. A blade sight that she can control, because every time she does it glows. Orochimaru's eyes went wide. He had seen the glowing light on the blade and on her arm as well. She was the one that was continuously slicing him. However, Naruto made it seem like it was him. To tell you the truth, I had no chance of defeating you. If it was 1-on-1, I would be probably dead right now. I'm far too weak to take you on as you are. Maybe a Jonin, but not you. I did get a piece of my power, but it's still nowhere close. Kyoka, on the other hand, she was created to fight people much higher than you. So she's faster, stronger, and she has been doing a lot over the past couple of years. She's only grown her strength. So don't feel bad about yourself that you lost. Besides, if I have you best in one thing right now, it's Fuinjutsu. Because when it comes to Fuinjutsu, there is no one on this planet and beyond that knows better than me, said Naruto. Don't try to struggle. That seal on your head was created to hold something much more powerful than you. Naruto said, getting up to his feet, as Kyoka sealed the blades back in her arms, her tattoos lighting up before going dim. And besides, if you haven't noticed as yet, I've seriously underestimated how powerful you are. Your reactions were delayed, courtesy of Kyoka as well. As I said, the weapons were special. And when I said weapon, I didn't exactly speak only about mine, said Naruto. Those weapons were not ordinary. They were tied to Kyoka's very soul. Yes, they were tied to her soul. Her abilities did not only stop regenerative abilities, but it also fragmented the person as she was attacking, taking a fragment of her soul in each of her slice. It would not implant itself in the person's body or anything like that. It simply give them a delayed reaction in their next movements. It was like a suppression of sorts, which allowed Naruto to best Orochimaru's speed and knock him down the second time. As the Sannin was already hit with a fragment, the second slash It made it absolute. Because Naruto was right. At the moment, he did not possess the ability to defeat Orochimaru at all. However, Kyoka was here, and she was vastly more powerful than the Sannin, given all that she's been up to for the past couple of years, to make sure that she would be strong enough when her master does return. With that, they took Orochimaru. Time skip. Sakura finally woke up. She felt so tired, like her energy had been sapped, and also well rested. It was a really unusual sensation. She opened her eyes to see Naruto looking down at her. "Naruto?" she said. She jumped up as their heads bumped together, causing the both of them to recall and rub their heads, which caused her to complain about why he was so close to her. "I was just checking up on you," said Naruto. "I saw that you were moving. I thought you were finally waking up, and you did." What happened?" she said. She was looking around. "I came back to see you on the ground unconscious, and Sasuke in agonizing pain. As I did, I saw someone leaving." "Orochimaru?" "What? Orochimaru?" "Yeah. He's one of the Sannins. A traitor to this village. He attacked us. She rushed over towards Sasuke. He bit him." "Is he?" "I'm not sure," said Naruto. "He's been unconscious ever since." Sakura released a heavy breath. It was so horrible. He wasn't supposed to be here. "It's alright now," said Naruto. "There's no need to get amped up. He's gone now. And you two are fine. I'm sure that Sasuke will beat this. I mean, come on. It's Sasuke," said Naruto. "Yeah, I suppose you're right." Naruto did not really care for the Uchiha, or her as well. However, he was simply playing the part of Naruto Uzumaki. He could sense the two ninjas moving in before the third one start to observe from behind. "Sakura," said Naruto, "we have a problem." "What's wrong?" Suddenly, three ninjas jumped down. They did not move or say anything. They simply stood there, observing the cave. Well, not really a cave. A hollowed out tree. "We know you're in there," the leader of the group said. "Hey, wait. That's the one who attacked the boy with the glasses in the first exam," Sakura said. Damn it. Remembering him waving his hand and Kabuto collapsing down, this was bad. Naruto started to walk. "Wait, you can't take them on by yourself," she said, looking at Sasuke worriedly. They had to fight. Sasuke was unconscious. They had to protect him. So she started to walk alongside Naruto, making sure that she had her weapons. Naruto was curious to see how far she would go when it comes to protecting the Uchiha. Stepping out, they were ready. "We're not here for you too," Zaku spoke up. "Give us the Uchiha and we'll be on our way." You want Sasuke?" "Why?" she said. "That's none of your business," Kin said, the girl on the team. "Now hand over the Uchiha, the final member, those who spoke, and you two won't have to get hurt." "No," Sakura said, standing her ground as she pulled out a kunai. "We won't allow you to touch Sasuke. You'll have to go through us first." "Huh. Good idea," said Zaku, placing his hand forward. The next moment, a discharge of energy erupted in front of his hand. A wind, powerful sound wave shock that tear through the entire place. Zaku's smirk that had to have gotten the both of them. He watched as the dust cleared as Sakura was looking shocked. She couldn't believe it. It was so fast. She couldn't dodge in time, but Naruto had grabbed her and thrown her out of the way, risking his own life as he got hit. She looked over towards him as he lay on the ground, unconscious, unmoving. "Don't worry, I'll handle this one," as Kin ran in to attack Sakura. Meanwhile, watching from the trees was Team 10. "We have to do something," Ino said. They couldn't just stand here and allow this to happen. They had to help. She was worried about Sakura. Sakura was her friend. Sakura got caught by Kin, who was mocking her for being weak, until she sliced her own hair off, with the kunai in her hand to get free, attacking Kin in the process. Zaku attacked her, but she showed a surprising amount of resilience, biting him as he punched her. She brought the kunai down and stabbed him in the arm. That pissed him off, however. Before Dosu could enter, Lee arrived. Rock Lee, having dispatched himself from his teammates, who were not so pleased by his intervention. Unfortunately though, Dosu once again seemed to have magic, as he brought Lee down just like he did Kabuto, with a simple wave of his hand right near to his ears. Sakura tried to crawl over to help Lee. Meanwhile, Naruto was lying there, completely fine. He simply wanted to see how far Sakura would go if she would give up, believing that she was too weak. When Kin was mocking her, he thought that would be her breaking point. However, he supposed she wasn't entirely useless, as she was willing to fight despite knowing her weakness. Well, he supposed that was enough for now, he thought to himself, having gotten the answer to his question. As there wasn't really much to it, he simply wanted to know. He was about to kill them all right now as he got to his feet, until Sasuke Uchiha got up, fully covered by the curse mark. Naruto got up and watched, not intervening, as Sasuke proved to be a monster amongst monsters. The power radiating from him was vastly greater than before. Shikamaru Nara was watching Naruto carefully. Shikamaru was a person that did not like to get involved in certain situations. He has perfected sleeping on the job, and he was sure that Naruto was simply pretending to be unconscious. However, that did not tie in with Naruto's personality, given the kind of person that he was. However, Shikamaru saw a strange look on Naruto's face, an insightful look, like he was observing more than he should. Something was not right. Shikamaru thought as he watched Sasuke obliterate Zaku and humiliate Dosu. However, Sakura was able to calm him down by hugging him from behind, pleading with him not to go any further. As he relented, he gave up. Time skip. Orochimaru stood, along with Kabuto and the members of his team. They were casually within the village like they weren't wanted here. However, the Sannin was having a discussion with them about the next phase of his plan. Everything seemed to be going rather well. Meanwhile that was going on, Naruto was seated on a bed. As he unsealed the scroll, after they had got their, bearings in, they headed straight towards the tower, having already got their scroll. Well, Naruto did, faking that he had simply found it after the battle with the Sannin. But that was not the case. Orochimaru had swallowed that scroll. He simply took out a team. Well, not him personally. Kyoka did. So yes, Naruto unsealed everything that he's hidden away, as he proceeded to absorb, piece by piece, every single one of them. His treasure weapons, every single one of them possessed an aspect of his power. Bit by bit he absorbed them all, until he found what he was looking for. A bright smile crossed his features as he pulled out a key. But not just any key. It was massive and golden, with massive carvings and marks all around it. Making his way towards a wall, Naruto pulsed his chakra inside key, causing it to activate. The wall. A slot was created from the formulation of chakra at the tip. The key entered and turned. The wall started to shift. Space itself started to turn and revolve, creating a door that wasn't supposed to be there, linking an entrance and an exit to something that never existed. This wall led to the outside, as when Naruto opened the door, it was a massive building inside. Stepping inside, a smile crossed Naruto's features as he pulled the key from the door. While holding it within his hand, the door still remained. until he proceeded to close it behind him and the door itself vanished. Time skip. 5 days. That was all that it took. After said 5 days came to an end. They were all gathered as Naruto was there, ready to participate within the other challenge that was going to take place. There was a lot of talking, but Naruto blocked majority of that out as he had something else on his mind, thinking about something else. By the time he focused in once again, Sasuke was going up against a member of Kabuto's team. Kabuto, Orochimaru's subordinate. Let's just say that a lot was going on and many people doesn't know what exactly it was. As Naruto leaned up against the wall, watching what was taking place. He watched the mark on Sasuke's neck, trying to take over him, but Sasuke forced said mark back, showing a resilience and a willpower that surprised Naruto, as his crave for power did not allow said mark to take him over. Naruto supposed that was a plus, as he watched and waited. As Sakura went up against Ino, Naruto closed his eyes. Truly disappointing, he thought to himself, as he looked at his hands, despite his eyes were closed. Absorbing all that power had, well, it changed him physically. So he had to place himself under a very powerful seal to suppress his form as he was right now, to make people believe that he was still the same. He was surprised to how actually much of his power he had placed within the weapons. It always baffled him to how much power he naturally possessed. His name was called, as he wasn't even focusing. He had to be alerted by someone nearby. Making his way down there, his opponent was Kiba Inuzaka. Sakura and Ino match wasn't that rough on either of them. Despite the both of them knocking each other down, they did not need to go to the infirmary, and after 2 matches they were there to watch the remaining matches take place. As the both of them had bandage on them, Ino made her comment. Well, Naruto is done for, she said, as much as she did not believe that Kiba was that powerful. Kiba always retained a top spot in the class when it came to fighting, and Naruto was always at the bottom, so yes, he was done for. As Naruto calmly made his way, many were thinking that it's over, Kurenai thought to herself, gazing down below. As Kakashi had returned, Sasuke was not with him though. Kakashi had properly sealed away the curse mark for the time being. Kurenai glanced towards him as he gazed towards her at the corner of his eye. Seeing that look, she seemed to be arrogant about Naruto's defeat despite said match hadn't even begun just yet. Kiba was confused as Akamaru started to behave strangely. Akamaru was constantly whining since stepping down into the ring, like something was wrong. Come on boy, it's just Naruto, he said, placing Akamaru down. The dog seemed to steal his nerves, calming himself. Animals were more in tune to sense danger. Despite Kiba's animal instincts, he did not. He pointed towards Naruto. I'll give you one shot to give up right now. We both know that you've never been able to best me within the academy, and since then I've only got stronger. So, I'll save you the further embarrassment from me proving that I am the alpha male and give you a chance to give, Kiba said. Naruto tilted his head and smirked towards Kiba. You sure do talk a lot, dog boy, he said. Kiba gritted his teeth. Fine, I was just trying to be the nice guy here and save you the embarrassment, but if you want it that way, we can do it that way, Kiba said, smirking, as he gazed up towards the audience. Everyone strap in for the beatdown of the century, he said. The next moment, as a proctor gave them the go-ahead, Kiba wasted no time as he ran in, Akamaru taking the other side. They both charged at Naruto as Kiba went in, straight taijutsu, Akamaru leaped to catch Naruto off guard. As Naruto stood in the center, a smirk on his face. He dug within the depths of his power that he had recently recovered, but he immediately stopped himself, knowing that his next action would result in Kiba and Akamaru's death. And he does not need the publicity right now. After all, he was incognito, undercover. So he simply weaved and dodged. Naruto's arms were in his pockets as he weaved and dodged away from their strikes. He pulled his arms out as he pushed his hair back, weaving and dodging away from them. Not a single one of them coming close to touching him. Many were shocked to what they were seeing. Kurenai snapped her gaze towards Kakashi, who seemed to be just as shocked as well. The dexterity and the type of style Naruto was using to fight was one that he had not taught Naruto. His movements were something that Kakashi did not recognize. Guy took a keen focus on that foot play, as it seems like something that he's read about, but something that was from the vast past, not from this era. The way he moved away, he did not use his arms. It is known as the limbo defensive mode, a mode of complete relaxation, allowing your body to adapt to the movement of your opponent. One has to train thoroughly into achieving this state. This was simply the first state of the greatest defensive style ever. It was called Ultra Instincts. Ultra Instincts was a style that was one of the greatest that came to defensive. It was a mode of complete understanding, not just yourself but the air around you, the atmosphere, the radius of your opponent's strikes. It is said that one simply shut everything down, allowing their body to react to the very movements around you. The limbo was the first stage of that. While some in the past had been able to achieve limbo, there was only 2 others that ever achieved Ultra Instinct. However, this boy was doing the limbo with such ease and dexterity that Guy was wondering what the hell was going on, as he was completely serious about this, surprised by that work of art. Kiba flipped away with Akamaru as they landed. Enough of this! Are you just gonna constantly run away? Naruto laughed in his face. It's not my fault you're too slow to hit me. Kiba growled angrily. Up in the stands, Hinata Hyuga, someone that has watched Naruto from afar for some time now. From the exam begins when she saw him, she could tell that something was wrong. She was a constant observer of Naruto and she could tell that something was different about him. She didn't know exactly what it was, but something was different. It started from his personality. Strangely enough, he seemed like an entirely different person. Allowing Akamaru to transform, Kiba came at Naruto with a ferocity unlike before. His speed as he spun, tearing the entire place apart. Akamaru doing the same as well. It's over, Kurenai thought, as Naruto was trapped, dead in the center, unable to escape. There was nothing that he could do. I suppose I have been training, said Naruto, as he was talking to himself. What followed was everyone gasping at the display. Naruto plunged both of his hands into the spinning death and gripped the throat of both. Despite their movements tearing against his arms, the sleeve of his shirts were ripped off. His shirt was torn and gashed, as it was fangs and claws after all. However, as Naruto looked at his hands, there were tiny trails of markings. While they did not puncture deep within his skin, they did slash at him. Naruto looked disappointed, which he was, gravely so about his body not being strong as it once was. And given the fact that he had still yet to discover where the hell his power was located, it was a bit frustrating. Despite absorbing the energy away from his weapons, his strength had been magnified insanely, but He wasn't anywhere close to his full strength at all. Someone shouted at him as Naruto blinked, so lost in his thoughts he hadn't even noticed that he had been choking the life out of Kiba and Akamaru. Naruto dropped the both of them to the ground as their face looked rather blue. They were rushed off to the infirmary. As Naruto looked towards the proctor, feigning ignorance. Sorry about that. Seems I got caught up in my thoughts. Hayate, the proctor, looked rather concerned. A moment ago, he looked within the depths of Naruto's eyes, and what greeted him was a cold, wicked, heartless monster. It caught him off guard. Naruto wasn't even paying attention, and yet there was this darkness that Hayate was greeted with. As he thought to himself, was this the power of the Nine Tails? Has it been with the boy so long that he started to take on characteristics of the fox? That was the only thought that rushed to his mind as he had saw that look within the boy's eyes. Making his way up, as a few seemed to be concerned. After all, by Naruto's perspective, he was simply thinking about his situation, but by theirs, as Kiba was struggling to breathe, Naruto was choking the life out of him. Yes, that was their perspective, so it seemed rather awful to them. As Naruto made his way towards Kakashi, Sakura looking at him. However, he did not say anything, he simply sat down, looking more frustrated than he's been before. As the other matches took place, Naruto did not pay much attention. Even as Hinata got the crap beaten out of her, he did not care. Kakashi has been noticing things. He thought it was because of Naruto finding out about his parents, but going on missions with him, doing other stuff, Kakashi has been noticing things. It was Naruto's empathy. Yes, he stopped caring about people. He wondered if he was simply misunderstanding Naruto's actions, but now, Naruto was a person that came to other people's defense, even if he did not know them. He did not allow people to simply be, well, treated like trash. Same for what happened in the Land of Wave. And now, see, Hinata down there. His gaze had looked towards her before he looked away. The uncaring look in his eyes. Time skip. Naruto was calmly making his way. After the tournament came to an end, they were given 1 month to train. His opponent would be the Hyuga boy, the so-called prodigy. He wondered what would the reactions be when he dominated him. Kakashi left him with Ebisu to train him. Naruto felt insulted. He knew that the man wanted to train the Uchiha, but this was simply very insulting on his part. Shockingly so. Something that he couldn't quite believe. Time skip. He met Jiraiya of the Sannin. Naruto faked ignorance, acting like he didn't know who the man was, given that he knew the rundown of everything. However, after finding out, Naruto asked him about his father. He told him, well, Naruto simply brought it up, that he was the fourth Hokage's teacher, Jiraiya, already having a conversation with Hiruzen Sarutobi. Jiraiya knew what Naruto knew. However, Naruto did not know that Jiraiya was supposed to be his godfather. Well, that is what Jiraiya thought, but Naruto knew all of that because of his lovely servant, who has been watching him since he was brought into this world. She knew everything even before that. She's been watching, so yes, she had studied and made a mental note of everything within Kushina's life to ensure that nothing would stop her master from being brought back to this world. So yes, Naruto knew everything, but he faked ignorance. Throughout that time, Naruto pretended like he didn't know what was going on. As he spoke to Jiraiya, as Naruto was really looking forward to getting information, nothing else and nothing more. Jiraiya being the kind of man that he was, he perhaps had been around the elemental nation a couple of times, gathering intel, gaining information. Upon bringing up who his father was, Jiraiya seemed understandable. He knew. However, Naruto waited for him to say that he was his godfather, but the man did not. He was curious about that though as he watched him carefully. So they started to talk, and for the month Naruto was able to draw information out of him. Jiraiya said something as they spoke about the tail beasts. The man said something that brought together two pieces of information that Naruto missed. It was the information that he also got from the Sannin Orochimaru. As Naruto couldn't believe it. Could it really be? No, that's not possible, he thought. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't, he told himself. Naruto was a bit concerned when Jiraiya brought out the summoning scroll. Looking at said scroll, Naruto wasn't sure what was going to happen if he signed this scroll. Keep in mind that he was an enemy to the entire world, not just shinobis, the summoning creatures as well. His action that defied law and nature made him become one of their biggest adversary. And his soul still remained intact. There was a good chance that they might know who he was. If he signed this scroll, the imprint of his chakra, which was tied into his very soul. After all, these contracts weren't just a normal contract. They were signed by blood, an oath, a connection of one soul. Naruto looked at it. As a smile graced his features. Well, it doesn't really matter what happened after this because if he was right, Naruto bit his finger and signed his name. He then spent the remainder of the day holding on to Yamabunta. The problem was, at Mount Miyaboku, the moment Naruto signed his name on the scroll, the great Elder Toad, a toad that has been around since the Sage of the Sixth Path, opened its eyes wide as it felt the disturbance. It couldn't be. The toad wondered to itself. This was simply not possible. At the end of the day, as Jiraiya was going to make his way towards one of the very nice bars, he was summoned. He was caught off guard. This was not normal at all for them to summon him out of the blue. Meanwhile, that was going on. Naruto was within his home. As he proceeded to use the same key that he had to open the door space in time and stepped inside. Upon entering, Naruto proceeded to close his eyes, knowing that the amount of power that would be released, well, it would trigger an epidemic that would cause the people of Konoha to go into a frenzy. As Naruto stood there, he was within his mindscape. The vicious form of the Nine Tails tried its best to rip him apart where he stood, but that was just not possible. "Oh, be quiet," said Naruto as a muzzle wrapped around the fox, keeping it calm and quiet. Naruto held his hand out. The Death Reaper seal that he had tweaked appeared. As Naruto placed his hand on the seal, he started to tamper with said seal until he saw it. His eyes went wide before he went in a full-blown chuckle, laughing his ass off so much that he collapsed on the ground. Two reasons. The Uzumakis did something that he never expected them to do. Secondly, how did he not notice that before? He couldn't help but laugh to think that all this time, everything had been right under his nose. He was finding it rather hilarious. Yes, he did, as he lay there on the ground, wiping the tear away from his eye before he got to his feet. The Uzumakis were really clever. Insanely so. They were able to weave his power into intricate sealing patterns. Over 5 million of them, which they stored within the tail pieces. However, that was not all, because if that was the case, the power would have simply merged with the tail beasts, allowing Naruto's sentience back in this world in the form of 9 powerful beasts. So what they did were, they isolated each fragment of this seal, no doubt with the help of Hoshirama Senju to contain all the beasts. With that, they tied this to the connection of the tail beasts having a host. So even when the tail beasts are alone and wild, they wouldn't even know that the power was there. However, when they gain a host, this power is sealed within the host, trapping it inside of them, giving them no way to access this power without dying. Because the only way to access it was to breach the contract that was created the moment a beast was sealed within a user, which would end up with their death, so they wouldn't know about it. This was a big risk, but they did it. However, the drawbacks weren't that bad, because no one would ever think of that. And breaking that seal down, breaking all of those intricate patterns down, would be impossible for anyone else. And this secret was probably kept to the top, so no one knew all this time. Naruto started to undo the seal right there and then, making sure that the amount of chakra was properly regulated so it wouldn't affect him one bit. Despite undoing the seal, the Nine-Tail was still bound to where it was. The more powerful seal that Naruto placed over himself was a seal known as the All-Binding Seal, something that he had created that could contain and bind every single tail beast. Much more powerful than the Death Reaper seal. After all, he dabbled within the arts of death, and he've already transcended what that was by besting death itself and becoming immortal. So yes, Naruto simply countered the reaction time, so he didn't have to go through the millions of intricate patterns. The seal was basically thinking that he was dead, therefore it triggered the million sealing to allow the power to remain in the tail beast as it is relinquished back in the world or as a chakra reform. However, Naruto allowed the counteracting seal to make sure it did not go that way. Instead, he drew the power back into him. The Nine-Tail being the strongest, it was gifted with more of his power than the others. Immediately, Naruto's body started smoking the real world. Smoke started to leave his mouth and eyes. The containment of such power flooding back into his system. However, the moment it recognized his chakra and his soul, it started to stabilize, making him vastly stronger than before. When Naruto snapped his eyes open, they were glowing ominously. Sometime before this though, Jiraiya was caught off guard, not expecting this, as he found himself surrounded by Ma and Pa, seeing the symbol on the ground. "What's going on?" he said. "Why was I summoned?" As he was a bit caught off guard by this. "You must come with us now, Jiraiya boy," Ma said. "What's going on? Just come," Pa said. Seeing the urgency in their tone, Jiraiya did not delay. He was surprised as they brought him straight towards the great elder Toad. Upon arriving there, the man was awake. The great elder Toad was usually asleep or fallen asleep during his conversations, but he was fully awake. He was fully alert as he gazed down towards Jiraiya. The Toad seemed rather serious. He started to speak to Jiraiya, who paid attention, knowing that the wisdom that come from this Toad might seem silly because of his whole sleepy attitude, but it was real. On my time on this planet, there has been twice where this world once comes to an end. The first one was many years ago, But you, and most others like yourself, will know of the second one. Jiraiya was curious about the first but said nothing of it because he did not interrupt. Satoru Uzumaki. Hearing that name, Jiraiya remembered the stories that he heard about that man in the past, from his own sensei as well. Back when the stories were still going around until people decided to just keep that on their wraps, many believing that it was for the best. The whole world fought against one man that created an army. He believed himself to be a god, to be an all-powerful being that could not be stopped by any. He was able to breathe life into something that didn't have life before. He felt untouchable, unstoppable. However, while you all ninjas grouped together to face off against him, none of you truly noticed what was really taking place. The fabric of this world would have been torn apart if his arrogance was not beyond everything that anyone else had ever gathered over the years. He was messing with nature, laws that were there for a reason. He broke some of those laws, driving this world into chaos. However, upon his death, all of that stopped. But I'm afraid that once again, that evil has arisen. What do you mean, said Jiraiya. I don't understand. You signed a new summoner today. Jiraiya gazed narrowed, yes, as he wondered what that has to do with anything. The boy that you signed. Tell me about him. Curious on how the Toad knew that it was a boy, but still. He told him about Naruto, who exactly he was. It seems Satoru was much smarter than we originally thought. Even death, he said, would not bind him. The Uzumakis went out of their way to seal his power away, to make sure that he could not access any of it, to send his body and soul beyond because he could not destroy it. But he's crawled himself back into this reality. How? It is the boy that you signed, Naruto Uzumaki. Jiraiya's eyes went wide. What? He said, looking at the Great Toad. Time skip. Jiraiya, returning back to the village. The man heads straight towards the office. Hiruzen looked up as Jiraiya entered. It was a rather busy day, preparing for the outcome of the final exams. So yes, Jiraiya, well, I'm glad to see you, given that you rarely visit. I can't do this right now, Hiruzen said. We need to talk. Hiruzen looked up as he finally met Jiraiya's gaze, and that is when he saw it, the utter seriousness in his eyes. Something wasn't right. While Jiraiya could be a serious person, he tended to be mostly jovial most times. So seeing that gaze coming from him, Hiruzen knew that something was off. Something was gravely wrong. What is it? He said. He signaled for Hiruzen to clear the room. This had to be kept on the down low between them alone. The room was sealed off. It's Naruto. What about him? You know that I had him sign the Toad summoning contract. Yes. Did something happen? I was summoned to Mount Miyaboku. It caught me off guard as well, but the Great Elder Toad told me that the moment Naruto signed the contract, he felt something. Something that he never wanted to feel ever again. Satoru Uzumaki. Hiruzen's eyes went wide hearing that name. Time skip. Naruto was simply seated on the monument's head. He was talking, but there wasn't anyone nearby. As he was talking, but the person wasn't there at the moment. However, he kept quiet as someone passed by. An Anvu. Strange, Naruto thought. They were hiding themselves. However, Given the relinquish of some of his powers, Naruto was able to tell exactly where they were. Something did not seem right. They were watching him. They were spying on him. As he wondered, was he right about the toads? His connection to his past might have sent off alarms, which would then be relayed back to Jiraiya, who would relay that information back to Hiruzen. However, Naruto doubted that they would do anything. When he signed the contract, the toads would believe that he was a shell of his former self. His very soul was weak. That is how they would see it. However, they had no idea that right after that, a huge portion of his power was brought back to him. His power was completely synchronized with his body right now, as he still kept up the illusion. The Fuinjutsu markers that kept his features normal. However, Naruto sensed another Anvu. They would not make such an irrational move, doing something that would be rather stupid. Meanwhile, Hiruzen Sarutobi had Kakashi brought back to the village, interrupting his training with Sasuke Uchiha. The moment he got in, Hiruzen wanted to know how has Naruto's personality and behavior been lately. Kakashi was a bit nervous on those questions as, looking up, Jiraiya of the Sannin was standing right there looking at the man. Kakashi relayed his doubts and about Naruto's lack of empathy. Both of the men share a look, which got Kakashi concerned. There was something that was going on and he needed to know what exactly was going on. Hiruzen turned towards him. We don't believe that Naruto is Naruto anymore. Kakashi was confused. What does that mean? He said. First thought that came to mind was the Ninetales, but what he heard next shocked him. As Kakashi tied into Naruto's personality being different and him trying to fake that it was the same. Perhaps this had to do with him finding out who his parents were. Perhaps the Ninetales scam was a lie. Something that he brought up. Now thinking about that, he started to question something once again that has been weighing on his mind when they went to the land of waterfall. As the area was not a sign of someone losing control. It was a sign of someone controlling a ridiculous amount of power, keeping it in check. And the evidence that Naruto was the only one. Shibuki was unconscious. The others that were there and Sasuke as well. Kakashi was now worried, believing that they had a great foe within their midst that has been tricking them the entire time. He looked up and questioned on what they would do now. Hiruzen was very cautious. Well, he knew he had to be on this. This was a very dangerous situation to be in. They had to play this perfectly. They couldn't afford for any mistakes. Given what they know right now, Naruto doesn't have access to any of his powers. Well, that was wrong, as Jiraiya told them what the Toad told him. His conversation with the head of the Uzumaki clan and Hoshirama Senju. The Great Toad was a part of the big secrecy, the cover-up, given their longevity and how long they live for. Being able to contain this information, the summoning animals like the slugs were there as well. The snakes, they could not be trusted. They were always the darker one out of the few, posing a darker and deeper threat against everyone else. So yes, not to mention there were some rumors that Satoru had contact with the snake head boss, so they had to be careful there. That means he has a portion of his power that he can receive from the Ninetales. Hiruzen knew that they could not do anything stupid right here because if Naruto was this person, he was a master of sealing that no one could ever come close to. That meant he had the power to relinquish the Ninetales at any moment notice, causing complete catastrophic destruction on the village. So they had to be extremely careful. What none of them noticed was a small little creature about the size of a dust droplet that was currently inside of the room, having been carried in there by none other than Kakashi Hatake, as they didn't believe that Naruto suspected that they knew anything. However, as Naruto opened his eyes, having gotten all of that information, always 2 steps ahead, not to mention there was also one on Jiraiya as well, from the moment that Naruto signed that contract. Something that couldn't even be detected by nature energy, while it could not cause them any bodily harm or damage because of its size. It was good for gathering information. When it even collapsed in on itself, ceasing to be a problem anymore, they wouldn't even know because of the size. Naruto got to his feet and stretched. It seems the cat was out of the bag. He brought a hand to his chin. What to do now, he thought to himself, as he looked down towards his hand, before he gazed up at the sky, gazing up towards the moon. Well, perhaps this could work in both our favors, given my change of goal. Kaguya, Naruto said, gazing up towards the heavens. But guys, be instant right here. If you want to see next person do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.